My name is Tina Eisen and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based in the UK. I've been shooting commercial and editorial work for about 9 years. Up until now I have used Profoto mains-powered monolights, which have been great for studio environments. And I have recently started introducing the A1s into my setup. I've used portable on-camera flashes before, but when I got my hands on the A1, the main thing that struck me was the big, even, round spread of light. I was so impressed. Today I set myself the challenge to create an editorial consisting of 6 creative beauty setups in one day and with only 2 Profoto A1s. I organized a 6-look shoot combining the Spring-Summer 2018 trends and my love of everything floral. I came up with different light setups for each of these scenes, using a mix of modifiers to help me achieve a unique feel for each one. I experimented with different umbrellas, gels, diffusers and bonnets. I love how easy it is to interchange the modifiers. Some of them literally just snap onto a magnetic mount. Done. For me, a picture comes to life when there's nice catch lights in a model's eyes. It really helps the viewer to connect with an image. We discovered so many exciting locations and props on the day. And due to the small size and portability of the A1, I was able to move around and change sets super easily. One thing that always throws me off shooting outdoors is rapidly changing light conditions. Being able to control the A1 by air remote makes changes quick and pain-free. Another thing I didn't have to worry about all day was the battery. After 8 hours of shooting, the battery life seemed hardly touched. Using 2 A1s rather than just one enabled me to work with the conditions that were already there while putting my own creative lighting style into these images. It was such a nice feeling that we could just hop from location to location and include some London landmarks and not have to worry about carrying big light heads or even stands. Today went amazing. The pictures straight out of camera were even better than I could have imagined. I'm really excited about these images and I can't wait to show them to the team.
Hello everybody and
Hi.
Welcome
Hello.
to a special edition of Academy Live. We're not alone, David and myself. We actually have a special guest with us today.
Hi! How's it going?
We got Tina Eisen here, and why do we have Tina Eisen here? Most of you hopefully already know why. She is our face outwards for the campaign where we're launching the Profoto Duo Kit. And so we thought that why don't we bring her over to Academy Live and pick her brain a little bit, or actually quite a lot. And we are going to do that, and we're also going to talk about the grid kit.
Picking.
Yeah, no, don't pick yet. We're also going to talk about the grid kit and show a little bit about, show actually the effects and what it does and why you should use it and so forth. So, hi and welcome, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. This is really exciting. We just launched a campaign and it's going bananas. Okay, so there's a pink elephant in the studio. Why don't we talk about it right away? We're going to probably have a lot of comments in the chat. What about Sony? What about Fuji? So why don't we talk about it right away? We know that you guys want a Sony A1 desperately, and so do we. We also want it out desperately as fast as we can, trust me. A project like launching a project like an A1 for Sony, etc., it costs every day it's not launched, it costs money. So as a company, Profoto, they are doing their utmost to launch the product as fast as they can. And right now the story is that it is still scheduled before the end of this year. And I know that you feel that it's almost the end of the year. It is August, and I don't have any more.
It's almost end of the year. It's August.
Yeah, exactly. But there's still a couple more months, and they are working as fast as they can to get it out there. So it will come. It will come, and it's not soon enough. We know that. And when it comes to Fuji, there's been a lot of comments on all these Instagram posts and Facebook posts about the Duo kit. What about Fuji? Why haven't we said anything about Fuji? Well, that's because there's not much to say yet, but rest assured, our R&D manager, he is shooting with Fuji, so I'm very convinced that they are looking at doing something to solve his needs as well. But there's absolutely no timeline or anything like we can commit to. So that was Sony, Fuji, and then for all the rest, Lumix, Olympus, and so forth, they're all being looked at, but you can only do so much in one time. So that was a pink elephant. If you want to comment about when Sony, go ahead, but I mean, I will not have any other answers than that.
And actually, we are standing next to the R&D place, just a few meters over there.
Yeah.
So I know that Anders every day meets those guys, and I know that you can really rely on that. He is, asking them to really get the fresh information.
I know the frustration. So, but anyway, we have Tina here.
We do.
Beauty photographer, and you were chosen or asked if you would like to do some shooting with the A1s.
Yeah,
for the,
it was.
Yeah.
Someone got in touch, I think it was about March time, and it's a massive honor to be asked to do something like this, and I jumped at the opportunity straight away.
That's great. And also what kind of fascinates me is that it seems like you're really enjoying shooting with them as well. But first, I have one question.
Yeah.
Beauty photography.
Yeah.
I know still life photography and portrait photography, and there's so many different event photography and so forth. But what is beauty photography?
I love talking about that. Thanks for asking me that. So I always say to people, a portrait portrays a person. So you're trying to capture what they're about, their character, their essence. It is about your subject, the human in front of you. Whereas beauty photography, that's completely secondary. You're trying to sell a product or a service, which could be, makeup, it could be the service of a hairstylist, and the model that's being used to show these products or services is completely secondary. So the images that you see there are there to sell something, and who she is as a person is not shown at all. So it's not portraying her as a human, so it's not portrait photography.
It's super duper commercial though.
Yeah, that's it. So, the images like that you can see in my portfolio, that could be, for lipsticks, hair, even for a model's portfolio, which is still not portrait because that still shows her services, aka her modeling skills. So that's the aim of one of those. So what she is about as a person is completely not shown in that image.
And you've done this for about, is it 10 years now?
Yeah, I'm in my 10th year now. A little bit.
Have you seen any differences in what's modern, what's a beauty portrait, a beauty shot now compared to for 10 years ago? Yeah. Is there any differences in how it should look?
Massively. I mean, mainly in the way it's post-processed, I would say. So the way it's retouched, things are going towards being a lot more natural now. People want to see structure, they want to see pores, they want to see a realness, they want to see flaws, right? They want to see real human beings.
Perfect for that. I got plenty of flaws.
Sorry. But would you say that it demands more work out of the post-processing person, the Photoshop work? Is it more difficult now?
It's just a different process, I think.
Process.
In the past, I would say 10 years ago,
couldn't you like just smear
Smooth
everything
it
out?
all out,
Yeah,
I'm
but now you
thinking.
can't.
That's-
Now you really have to.
No. Now it's a case of, it's just a different process. It's different tools now that you use. I want to enhance, you know, every hair of eyebrows. I want to see every detail, every skin pore. So things in the past where people used to blur stuff, that's a one-click operation. Now it takes hours. I'm going to say hours to retouch a beauty image, just to, you know, like enhance those details that people want to see.
And that's kind of interesting because everybody wants the realness. They really want to see the pores. Then you need more Photoshop
Exactly.
to really bring that out. That's interesting.
That's it.
I haven't thought about that. I would have guessed the opposite.
Yeah.
But that's me.
Yeah. In the past, it was just mask.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I can't really speak for like 10 years ago. Yes, I have been doing it that long, but in the beginning, it was kind of a little bit of a discovery for me as well. So I wasn't one of those people that's like, I love beauty, I'm going to do that. It was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of shooting other things first,
as well.
aka babies, pets, cars, all sorts, everything. You would be surprised of girls going, can I have a picture in front of a car?
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a bit of a discovery, and you know, most people just dabble a little bit and then they figure out what they're passionate about. And for me, it was always a case of being up close in someone's face, but mainly it was the transformation aspect that you know, motivated me. Once you had put incredible makeup on someone and have done their hair nice, the reaction that people give you when people are like, oh my god, I didn't think I could look like this, that's what inspired me to dive into beauty more.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, it's been really interesting to follow you over the last year, I would say, because we got to know each other almost exactly a year ago.
September, yeah, that's
in
it.
September at the launch event, and since then I've been following your Insta and Facebook, and it's really fascinating. I need to have a session with you where you can teach me a little bit.
Wow, do you think I can teach you things?
Oh my God, absolutely. The day I stop learning, that's the day I die.
True.
So no, it's a fascinating type of photography, and I'd like to learn a little bit more and get under the skin. So I'll book that.
I'll teach you.
Yeah.
I'll give you mates rates.
We did have some fun here earlier today,
We did.
playing around with some of the stuff we have on the wall here. So it's payback. No.
Yep.
Okay, can I just ask you, did you do your retouch yourself?
I do,
Yeah.
I do. I have done 100% of my retouch up until now, but it is getting a little bit too much, so I'm outsourcing now. So I get people to do the clean work, and I still do the finishing touches and the toning, because that is kind of what I'm known for.
Yeah, that's
But yeah,
yours.
I need help
Your
now.
style, yeah.
Yeah, just time-wise, you know, it's just so time-consuming. Especially, you know, the more megapixels you get, the longer it takes you, because you see every single, you see the inside of a pore now.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
a lot of work, yeah.
I'm going to check if we have any questions, and,
Oh, yeah.
please do ask questions if you have.
I saw on the video you were using Canon, right?
Yeah, I'm
5D?
I'm a Canon user,
Yeah.
5D Mark IV.
Yeah. You
That's
have
mine.
50 megapixel. That's a lot of megapixels
That
too.
is. I upgraded from the Mark II, so that was a big step.
Yeah, from like 18 or.
Yeah, that's it. So I skipped the 3
Yeah.
and went straight into the 4, and that was a big difference for me in terms of, you know, retouching took a little bit longer all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just such good detail now,
Yeah.
so I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I shoot a lot of Hasselblad, also 50 megapixel,
Yeah.
and that camera that you are using, you know, it's a really, really good camera. So I understand that the pores are, you know, are
That's
really,
it.
the details are crazy.
Crisp, yeah.
Yeah.
We get a lot of hellos from everybody here, and also Chris Fain, our guy over in the US, who's doing actually lives on Profoto USA's Facebook page. So go and check them out on Fridays. They're really, really good, and he goes through all kinds of exciting things. So pop over to Profoto USA on Fridays. I keep forgetting what time it is, but I'm sure Chris will pop it into the comments. I know it's about late afternoon here in Europe, like 4 o'clock somewhere.
So he can pay us back now, because I always bug him with questions.
Exactly,
Every
and
Friday.
he made us how the tables have turned, so now it's his turn, so
There we
be
go.
careful. So just fire away, Chris. I'm kind of also curious about what's your approach to lighting? How do you work when you have something you're going to shoot? What's your process?
I would call my style quite experimental. What I mean with that is I'm not one of those light meter kind of people. I have always done everything by eye. I have an aesthetic that I work towards, and I know how to achieve it now without having to meter it. And when I say experimental, sometimes just trying things out gives you the best results. So sometimes, you know, that time when one of your flashes didn't fire is actually the nicer picture, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm glad I tried that.
Random. Do you feel that randomness is your friend or your foe?
It is massively. And I mean, that's why you test. And every free, you know, weekend that I have, I get a team together and just try stuff out, and that's how you come up with, you know, experimenting gets you, you know,
playing a little bit.
That's like that's a big part of my development, just playing around. And sometimes, you know, like people get stuck in their ways. Sometimes even I do, and I will always shoot with 3 lights. And at one point, I'm like, actually, let's just dial it back and try something different today. Try some modifiers that I haven't used. So I'm pro-testing, pro-experimenting.
Oh, good. No, and we both like that as well. I mean, you do test a lot of things.
And I think that is super duper important, because if you are like stuck in your standard setups, it's hard to, you know, to find something. You have to be willing to fail.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, to really develop yourself.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
And do you have any special methods, you know, do you feel when it's time to experiment?
I never stop. I can't.
Always. So you don't have any standard setups that you start out with, or are you starting with the, you know, random stuff from?
Usually, like, I mean, the one thing that I'm very, very, you know, I can't not use it is a beauty dish. So it usually starts from there, and from there, I experiment with, you know, different fill lights, rim lights, this and that. But I'm quite faithful to the beauty dish to start with, and even that I have to actually kick my own butt to change that modifier for something else every now and then, because I am so in love with the results it gives that's like a given for me. And then everything else around that is more the experimental bit, I think.
But I know there's something else that you like a lot.
Freckles?
No, okay, besides freckles, yes you do, but you also like grids.
I do. I use grids on everything. I'm the grid girl. I've got a grid on my zoom reflector, on my softboxes, on my beauty dish.
You even have grids for softboxes that you don't have.
I have, did you know this?
No,
I have grids for strip boxes, and I don't have strip boxes.
So Interesting, so you use the grids for strip boxes, but not on.
I have, that's a...
You really love grids.
No, I mean, the story is kind of funny on how you got to it.
Because I hired some and they didn't have grids, so I actually just bought the grids, and now I just bring them to every shoot.
You just bring them along.
Bring your own grids, No, I like those as well, and we'll come back to grids more. So tell us a little bit about your journey, your kind of like 10-year journey from moving from not being a photographer and moving into where you are today.
So I'm one of those people that I didn't grow up with photography. I wasn't one of those people, I grew up with a camera in my hand. I actually studied business and worked in marketing to start with. And it took me roughly about 12 months until I figured out that that wasn't for me. And so I just kind of picked up a camera and experimented, and just, you know, as a hobby, just to keep my brain engaged. And suddenly people offered to pay me money for it. And that was the first time that I thought, oh, maybe I will quit my day job then and, you know, do something that I actually enjoy. And that's what it was. And I feel like because that came to me that late in life, it was 10 years ago, I was 25 then. And I always had the need to work extra hard and make up for that lost time. So as I said, it was always a case of, hey, is anyone free? Can we like play around? And so my journey was, you know, sped up a little bit because of ambition, I would say. So yeah, and as I said, you play around and suddenly find what you're passionate about. And as soon as I started getting commercial clients, then you're in the right environment. That's when I was first introduced to a proper set of lights, to professional models, that sort of thing. And that's when the networking really, you know, accelerated, and I met the right people. And that's where, Yeah.
Because I mean, you're always, every time I meet you, when you see a clip of you, or that, you're always so full of energy. It's just amazing.
It's coffee.
Yeah, coffee. Yeah. But also, I know. I mean, you're affiliated with Profoto. You're the face out for the Duo Kit, and you are affiliate of Capture One as well. You've done webinars with them, and you taught me a lot of new tricks with Capture One, which really helped me.
And taught me how to press the Alt key today, I think.
Yeah.
Just press it. No, but it's kind of interesting, but that you have all these big names or big companies asking you to show the tools that you're working with. I know that there's a lot of hard work. I mean, there are many hours and a lot of practicing as well.
Definitely. It's a lot, I say it's a lot of hard work, but it's also a lot of passion, and I think brands pick up on that. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, and they, are dying to be associated with the brand, but it's the attitude about it as well, and the way I'm just passionate about the products that I use, and I've always, I have used Profoto. I'm not using Profoto because I'm associated with you. It's always been that, and I was a fan of that product. And I think that passion just translates into everything I do. Like I wake up early, I go to bed late. It's not a job for me. It's love.
It's life. It's love and it's life. And so that's kind of cool. So would you have any advice for up-and-coming photographers that might want to move into the beauty sector? Because I'm sure there might be someone out there thinking, like myself, if you want to start shooting beauty photography, what tips and tricks would you give? If you think about yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago?
There's quite a few. It's as simple as be persistent, get in contact with creatives, network, find like-minded people. Don't be shy to get in touch with agencies for models. A lot of people are scared to make that step. They think they are not quite there yet. That's actually rule number one. Don't ever feel not good enough, because I always say to people, no matter what point you're at in your career, you are the right person for someone right now. So you might as well, get yourself out there. And there's a lot of people that are like, my portfolio isn't ready yet. One more shoot, then no, just do it now. Like get that airtime, show your work, and also don't take no for an answer. It's not like in this industry, rejection doesn't mean that you are not the right person next week. So if you're getting in touch with an agency and they don't have anyone for you this week, that doesn't mean that you are bad. It just means that they were probably really busy, and just keep going. And I think networking, testing, testing is not free work. Testing is an investment in your future. Do it whenever you have free time. If testing feels like work for you, I would reconsider if this is your passion. So
that's interesting. That I really do. That's really interesting. If you consider testing to be something that you don't like, then it might be wrong. I really like that one, because I think that testing, to trying to find out what you really like, that is really important. Because when you're, like you said, when you're doing something randomly, you have to have that confidence in your stomach, what you like, or else you don't know what you're doing. And that is the only way to improve your skills of knowing what you like, that is with testing.
Flex that muscle, because we can't know job with a client, we can really 100% rehearse. We can't. We don't know, like we haven't met every team member necessarily. So you can't rehearse. You can get as good as possible at it, and testing will get you there. That's a trial run of reality, I would say. So the more a shoot is not just you clicking a button, it's, interacting with people. Get that skill, building connections with a model. That's sort of like, that's all aspects that you practice when you're testing. So how precise are the directions from the ad companies and such when you get like a project? Please do this. How much freedom do you have? It's pretty much, from my experience, it's 50-50. I have had clients that were 100%, this is what it has to look like, so let's achieve that, and recreate it 16 times, actually, like a makeup shade, like every single angle, every single model has to look the same. So there's no creative freedom there. But then I had clients that would contact me
because of my book, and they would trust me, you know, they trust my input, and they booked me for my taste. And then it's a lot more, I had, you know, free reign, like which model, makeup artist, hairstylist we would book, like what lighting we do, because they know from the testing images that they've seen that I can do that sort of stuff. So, but it's 50-50.
So we got some questions.
Ooh,
One, in camera, when you're using your 5D, do you set any settings for sharpness, saturation, and so forth? Do you set it all for RAW and do that in post?
Literally, yeah. I literally do that. I shoot tethered, so it's just RAW that comes up anyway. Yeah. But I don't really do anything. I mean, I've got my white balance on the camera set as flash. Yeah. That's pretty much always it. But because I shoot tethered, I can make small tweaks straight away and then just carry that over to every picture that gets taken after that. Yeah, no, I'm not really doing, like, my camera is just
it's that standard, it's all set to 0, and then you shoot RAW. Literally. And we also got a question from David Groover, who you might know, and his question is, I wonder why, he was wondering what kind of RAW converter are you using, because your images look amazing. Wow. And let me just clear up that David works for a certain company that creates
that rhymes
software
with
that rhymes with
Flapture One.
Yeah, Flapture One. So what do you use?
So I use Capture One, and again, I have, there's others out there, but 100% of my commercial clients, if I shoot in a commercial studio, have used Capture One. So I got used to it, and you know, I got into it, and now that's the one I use, and now I can actually see the differences. You know, pictures straight out of camera shot into Capture One look the most pleasing to the eye and the closest to reality, because these guys put so much into R&D to make these pictures look like that. And the speed, you know, of tethering, that's it. Yeah. Like, and I use, they have really stepped up their toning game. So I do a lot of like skin tone corrections right there and then, which is important, you know, if you have clients there and I want to show them as close to the end product as I can right away.
And David, I am also using Capture One, and we're going to use Capture One soon when we're showing it off the grid. So
thanks for that question.
And I can also put one in because I shoot a lot tethered too, and Capture One is it's the best.
Yeah, it's so fast.
It's so fast and it's reliable.
It's like real time almost, literally. And it's so important in beauty. Imagine the detail, you know, of the makeup and having it pop up like almost simultaneously, and for the makeup artist to see her work bigger than, you know, the back of the camera screen, and see what she can fix and keep an eye on that, which then ultimately saves me so much time in retouch. It's just, you know, it's so important, especially in beauty. Fix it now, not in post.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree. What about, I mean, I've talked about it earlier and I will mention it again. You are always this bundle of positive energy, and it doesn't matter what time in the morning or in the evening you post something, you're all bubbly and happy. Where do you get all your energy from and your inspiration?
Except the coffee.
Despite
the coffee.
Cake.
Yeah. Cake.
My inspiration, I think everything around me. I walk around with my eyes open. People that have seen my work know that I'm inspired by nature, because there's a reoccurring theme of flowers and mold and stuff like that, but ultimately nature, because I think there's so much that it gives you, the patterns, the colors, the shapes. It's just insane. And just walk around with my eyes open. I can walk into a restaurant and like be inspired by the pattern on the cushion or the shape of the lampshades. It's just think outside the box. I feel like a lot of people watch current trends, but the moment you have seen another photographer do something, it's too late. Yeah. So be inspired by more things than just photography, I think.
Which is kind of interesting in saying it, because I know another photographer that's also very much inspired by nature. And that's actually you, David. And you, and you taught me as well to look for things, stuff that nature does with light or and so forth, and then you try to copy that in the studio with.
Nature has it all, and I mean, like when you are seeing interesting patterns and when you are seeing all this stuff that really gives you energy, creative energy. I mean, that has to be magic to walk around in the world and just bring how do you say it, inspiration from everywhere. And this room in here is all white, it's all flat, it's all black
and white.
So this is a boring place for creative possibilities. Yeah.
But,
but then we have us.
We're bringing the light.
Yeah, exactly. Two bearded guys. Maybe that should be the title of the.
I like
Two
that.
bearded guys talk about life.
That sounds so enchanting.
Yeah. No. So that's kind of cool. That nature.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a good tip for everybody. Look for nature, not only what nature does with light, but also colors, patterns, and mold.
Yeah, and mold inspires me more than flowers, I have to say. Because flowers, that's the obvious pretty one, that's the nice colors. But mold thrives in the worst conditions, and it's just the most fascinating thing.
That'd be my fridge then.
Can I take some pictures of that later?
Well, I've been out away for a while and forgot a couple of things in the fridge, and it was not a good idea. So anywho. We've talked a little bit about gear, but I'd like to know, because I know there are a lot of gearheads out there, what's your go-to gear?
Yeah.
We know this raw converter, it's Capture One, right?
Yeah.
And what else do you use?
So camera, we've mentioned that. I'm a Canon girl, 5D Mark IV, and lenses, there's a variety, but there's one go-to, which is the 100mm macro. And I'm just in love with it. For me, it's so versatile, going from, portrait crop to close-up macro shots of like details of makeup. I can just switch with that lens, so I hardly ever take that one off, I have to admit. Light-wise, I bought D1s, and I would say almost 10 years ago. So that was my first set of lights, and I still use that same set of lights. So it might not be the most current, but it works as well as it did when I bought it.
Well, light is light.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Like, I've never had a problem with it. And now, obviously there's B1s, B1Xs. So if I have a big shoot with lots of people on set, I try and keep it tidy, and I would then use the B1s or B1Xs just, to save myself people tripping over stuff.
Or
health and safety.
Photographers tripping.
Oh, yeah.
I did have a bit of a tripping accident almost, but you saved the camera.
I caught it like a ninja.
Yes, you did. You saved the camera. That would almost cost the camera. But I'm the clumsy one when I'm shooting, so it's not. I can't blame the others. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So D1s, that's your
D1s, that's my
go-to.
go-to. And then B1s, B1Xs for bigger productions.
Yeah.
But then, I have introduced the A1 into my setup ever since it was launched, because small spaces, beauty doesn't need much space to start with. So a lot of times I will just get a team together and shoot in my living room, and now I'm restricted for space. I use the A1, as fills, as rims, all sorts now. It's just so handy. And obviously, location, it's just so light and easy to carry around. So I shot, I did a test in New York, and for me to take my D1s there is not possible. So I took the A1s, and the results were pretty similar.
You're pretty happy with the results,
So
it's okay to say that they were good.
You know what? I might get one. No, I'm honestly, this, I wouldn't say that, and it sounds super, super cheesy, but the campaign that we shot with the two A1s, I was honestly impressed. I could not say that if I didn't mean it, but I have used flash, portable flash in the past, and it wasn't for me. And I was a little bit worried, if I could shoot beauty nicely with those, but oh my God. You can't see that in the clip, but the first image that I took on the day, I was already like, this is gonna change my life, pretty much. And it makes me shoot on location a lot more. It makes me get out of the studio and get out of my comfort zone.
So how did you work on? We've seen the video, and tell us a little bit about your kind of experience with the Duo kit and how you worked with the two lights. How were you thinking with the...
So being on location, I mean, as you saw, it was a beautiful place. There was a lot of natural light. I want to take advantage of that. I want to make it look like location with beautiful light. So I'm trying to not compete with sunlight or with natural conditions. I'm trying to enhance them. So what we did a lot of times was trying to mimic sunlight when we were shooting indoors. And then when we were shooting outdoors, great British weather, it would literally change every 2 seconds. So that was really handy because, you know, it's just so easy to change with the air remote and try and make it look real. You know, try and either enhance the sunlight or, you know, like use it as a fill and just work with what you have.
Cool.
That's pretty much it. Like, because if you are on location, you don't want to make it look like studio. So
no, exactly. And for those of you who want to learn more about that, there is actually one of the courses in the fundamentals of lighting on Profoto Academy, which is called How to Mix Flash with Ambient Light, and that really gives you the shortcuts and tips and tricks on how to blend.
Yeah, how to balance that out and what to look for to really try to blend the flashlight into the ambient light.
We didn't rehearse this, but you say a lot of things that are
it was really like you said, like enhancing the natural light and such. So
it's almost like you were reading a script there. So thank you.
You're gonna ask me back. I'm doing good.
That's really good. That's interesting to see.
But I mean, it is the truth.
Yeah, that is the truth. It is the truth.
I couldn't say that rehearsed, and like everything I said in the clip as well, it was me just talking from experience.
You didn't have a gun against your head. Say this.
Suitcase with dollars. No, it was just me speaking, and I think that's important. It comes across. It's not like I have to say this. I always say that. Like I use brands because I believe in them, not because because I want to be.
I think that's important. I think it's very important to first of all use brand that you like, and also if you are promoting something or if you're affiliated with someone, I mean, you do that with brands that you believe in, that you use, and also the people behind the brands
I'm doing this because of you.
Maybe it's only me, yeah, sure. Excellent. So let's see if we have any questions.
Yeah, I'm sure
can I ask you what's your go-to modifier? You said
beauty dish is my favorite. Yeah. So if it's one light, I would say it's usually beauty dish. If it's two lights, it's a beauty dish in a small octabox as a fill.
You like the round shapes there?
I do. I do. That's it. I mean, for people photography, that's just the most pleasing, you know. And I'm a big fan of catch lights in people's eyes, so I'm trying to always like step it up how many lights I use just to get that sparkle. And those catch lights being round, or like the closest to round, is quite important for me. Yeah,
because if you have a softbox, and then you will have a squared.
Yeah, that's it.
Square catch lights, and when you're doing your macro thing, your 100mm, and you really see the catch lights. So do you ever put anything on your stuff like gaffer tape?
I haven't, but we did earlier. You know what? I was not aware of this, but we apparently you can put gaffer tape onto your handheld reflectors and it looks amazing. So that's something I'm taking away from today. But as we're speaking of the handheld reflector, that's 100% go-to. They will always be in there. I'm using 2 or 3 like in a beauty shoot. Like these are such a cost-effective way to add that little bit more sparkle in there and a little bit more fill. And
how do you work with the color gels or? Changing the mood of the light with color? With
the correcting gels. So for this, for the video you've seen, we have done that a lot because we try to keep consistency in terms of, you know, like sunlight warmth. Obviously, having shot in 6 different locations, we had to correct that a little bit. So we used the CTO quarter, half, and 1 throughout this campaign. So that I have used a lot. Yeah.
Cool. We got some questions. So if you are starting up and want to do beauty, and before you feel comfortable in getting into experimenting, would you have like a kind of a recommended setup? Where would you start? So kind of a starting point from where you would, from there, start experimenting.
Yeah. Are we talking about position of light right now?
So like a lighting setup. Is it 1 light setup, 2 light, and ballparkish? What are you looking for when you're doing a kind of a first setup? Like a recommendation for someone who's just about to start.
So work with what you have is my first tip. So if you don't have a beauty dish, I know I'm talking about beauty dish a lot, but you know, an octabox would work for that. And which
is the one you have behind you?
We brought one. So my go-to would be, I usually start out having it on my right, slightly above the model, roughly 45 degrees going down. Just, that's personal preference. The shadows that leaves, you know, like that's the kind of like fallout I want. If you only have 1 light, obviously you don't want to lose too much to like shadows on the side, so bring it quite like front on, I would say. that's one light setup sorted.
Yeah.
Like experiment with that. Learn to read light from existing pictures, but also from your own. Look at an image that you've taken and, you know, why do you not like it? Are the shadows too dark? Are the shadows too harsh? And, you know, choose your modifier accordingly, or change the position of the light accordingly. Yeah. You know, if you don't have any light in someone's eyes, for example, you might have, you know, your light too high up and just came like steep down that you didn't pick up on the reflection. It's not like, I feel like testing sounds scary, but it's not.
I mean, you won't break anything.
Do it with your mom, like get your siblings in and sit them there, and, you know, having modeling lights that kind of shows you the effect that your light has as well. Like try and like play around with that, and you see like how the shadows fall, and just be fearless and get family members involved. You don't have, if you're worried to like waste a model's time, then do it with friends first.
Yeah. Do you agree when I said that in the beginning people are afraid of shadows?
Yeah.
Oh, you see a shadow, remove the shadow, kill the shadow.
Yeah.
And shadows actually are your friend. It's about how you place the shadows.
Exactly, yeah, that's
so it's a lot like if the eyes are too dark, it is the shadow that you are replacing the shadows. The light is just the light, but it's the shadows that really enhances the shape.
Definitely.
So don't be afraid of shadows.
Don't be afraid of shadows. And also, if you're starting out and you only have one light, as I said, that handheld reflector does magic to, you know, like fill that shadow in a little bit. Like, you know, that's a cost-effective way to start out. One light and a reflector. Yeah. And you've got yourself a... I did a test last Saturday, and we had a model, a full team, and it was a 1, 2, and 3 light setup. And my favorite is actually the one light setup. So don't be scared to just work with what you have. Yeah.
And also, my recommendation is also start with one light and master that. Because quite often when you use many lights is that everything becomes just a big mess. Yeah. And if you are insisting on using several lights, do one light at a time. Yeah. That's really helped me. If I wanted to set a kicker, I close everything, I shut everything else down, and only work at the kicker until I have it where I want it. And then I look at, you know, if it's a halo in the background, I do the background. So I just do one light at a time, and then you pop everything on. So
that is a really good way to have control of what you are doing. So speaking of the question, where should I start? Do you have any setup? I would say that, as you said, one light, but also try to have control so that you know what you're doing, so it isn't totally random. The effects shouldn't be like, I don't know why, but it just happens. So try, if you have the control, you're doing one light at a time, then you know when something starts to happen. Then you can recreate it when you know why something happens.
That's true.
And I could put in a tip too, and this is especially when you're working with more than one light. That is, I would say, to start from the back and go forward. So instead of starting with this light, if you start, you know, with the background, with the rim light, and then the face lights, then you can always, then it's much more easy to have control. Yeah. So that is one tip from the right side.
Cool. So thank you so much for letting us pick your brain. It's really interesting. But do hang around. We're going to talk a little bit about the grids. We know that you love grids.
I do.
There is a grid kit just released, and it has 2 grids. One which is a 20 degree, and then one is a 10 degree angle, and it's basically the thickness of the honeycomb pattern in there. So while you, David, explains why should one use a grid and how it works, what does it do to a picture, and kind of what you can use it for.
Yeah, and I actually would like to talk about what it does. What does
so
it?
While you're doing that,
grid,
I'm going to go over and prepare the shooting station. Get
cool.
You know, the capture one running, David, and so forth. So you can go over there and shoot and show us some examples.
Yeah. Okay. So I really would like to start to talk about what a grid actually does. I mean, it isn't rocket science. It isn't rocket science. It is, and please help me with the English terms here.
I will.
It's holes. It's like tubes, small tubes. Can I go close? I don't know if you can see this. If you're
that was all right.
Let's see, where is the lens? There's the lens.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I twist this, you can see that it only shows a part of what's going on behind, and that is what's happening with the flashlight, with the light. You are cutting off all the rays from the flashlight that is going out like this, that is diverging like this. So you only get the rays that are going straight, and depending on how thick this piece of how would you describe this?
Honeycomb.
This honeycomb. The thickness of the honeycomb in this case depicts how much you will cut off. The rays are cut off. I know that there is people that wonders, do you get a longer depth of light with a grid? Would you know the answer to that one? A
longer depth of light?
Yes, you know, when you have a light source close, you get a short depth of light, the inverse square law, blah, blah, blah. And when the further away you have your light source, the longer depth of light you will have. And how will that be affected when using a grid?
It eats a lot. So
it eats a lot of power, exactly. But actually the depth of light doesn't change. And I know that there's a lot of people discussing this out there. But mathematically and physically, it doesn't change the depth of light. The inverse square law still applies when having a grid on. So what you do with the grid is cutting off light.
Yep.
You don't angle it in and put it forward. You cut the wrong angles off. So you only have this portion of light left. And what we are going to demonstrate here is some stuff that you can do with a grid. For me personally, I would say that the first thing that comes to me, why would I use a grid, is to what happens when you cut the lights off. For me, it is that it controls the contrast. You get higher contrast, and that is because the light doesn't bounce on walls and ceiling and floors, so it won't lit up the shadows. So when cutting off all that light, it's much more, you get a much more high contrast, darker shadows, in other words. What would you say is your main reason for using grids?
Same. I mean, mine is mainly controlling spill as well, because I like to, as I said, I'm using it on a zoom reflector, for example, which I'm using as a rim light, and I just want to control, you know, like the spread a little bit, you know, like keep that crisper.
So if you have a grid on your normal reflector, your zoom reflector, and if you remove the grid, what would you say would be the difference with that rim light or whatever you're doing? Well, how would it affect the rim light?
Well, so as you said, it's just like a nicer contrast. It just controls the area where it like spills into. So yeah, and the same goes for the beauty dish. I just find it that tiny bit crisper, to be honest. So
a tiny bit crisper, because I think that also is because the actual size of the light source actually gets smaller, and since you don't get all the spill light from the walls, you will have the more contrasty feeling of it. So a contrast enhancer.
Exactly. And why don't you show us a little bit? I have set up.
Should I bring this?
No, you have an A1 with the 20-degree grid on.
Okay.
So it's all set up, and we'll switch over to the David cam.
Yeah, the David cam. I go over here. Am I on?
Hello.
Hello. Yes. The David cam is on, and I bring the camera like this. Yes. Okay, so here we have a A1 with a 20-degree grid on. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the A1, and it's aimed on the Mr. Can head, this plastic Mr. Can that loves to be lit like this. And I think that if I just take an image, let's see where we are at with the grid on, okay? And Anders, have you put everything is set up with the Capture One and such?
Yeah, it should be, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm trying to give me some focus here. Oh, it's manual. Here we go, 3, 2, 1, and boom. Here we have a head.
So maybe change the angle a little bit so that you see a little bit more of the shadow on the side of your shooting angle, not the flash. I'm thinking the shooting angle, so towards the wall.
Towards the wall. So I understand. So I see the shadow angle of the head. I understand. I see the point. So we can see the contrast, of course.
Yes.
Yes. Let's see where we are at now. Can I just turn this so I see what I'm doing? I have a table that I can turn.
That's perfect.
Okay, so here we have the head, and on the left side of the head we have this really big black shadow. And that is because the light isn't hitting this wall since we have the grid on. So if I remove the grid, and now the head is zoomed a maximum, so we will have...
And you mentioned that the grid eats some power, right? So you probably need to lower that like 0.7.
Exactly. So I just go down to 6.3. The grid eats like 7/10 of a stop.
So now we are looking at the picture where you see a dark shadow on the person's right side.
Yeah. And here we go. 3, 2, 1, and boop. I actually take one more so I see the dark side even better. Like this. And here we have the dark side on the left here is a lot more lit from the wall on the side. And if I compare it with this one, that was the Tina trick. Here we can see the darkness of the first one where we had the grid on, and the second one where we didn't have the grid on. We get the light from the wall. And if I take one more picture showing the wall like this, this is without the grid, and we have this light source on the wall. And I put the grid on, and I will raise the power again, like that, and then we can compare the light from the wall. Do you see, Anders, the difference?
Wow.
The difference with and without the grid. And this is what causes the big difference in contrast. When we are cutting off all the rays of light that is hitting this wall, and with the grid, and without the grid, there's a lot more spread. And then, of course, I mean, I can zoom the head. I can still zoom the head in the flash, so I can still control how much divergence, how much spread I want from the light. But with the grid, you really control the contrast. You really go down, so you get really high contrast. And then you can always go higher, get more light into the shadows. When we are close to a wall, just like this. Other things you can do with a grid, a very popular thing is to do like a halo behind a head. If you have a A1 like this, just pointing at the wall with a grid, you get this round, nice shape.
And actually, the A1 with the grid is a perfect size because it's small, it's easy to hide behind the person, and also it gives you a nice round little halo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like if you have an A1 like this and you have the head, a person in front of it, the A1 is totally covered by the person's head, so it's really easy to hide behind a person, and you get that nice halo round. Then you put a beauty dish perhaps or something else just in front of the face, and it will look like magic.
Excellent.
Magic.
Yeah. Oh, we got one important question here. What's your favorite kind of cake, Tina?
Well, since my birthday is coming up soon, I'm going to say carrot cake. I'll put my address into...
Yes, and the carrot cake is your preferred, your go-to.
What's yours?
Ooh, there's a cake in Sweden called princess cake.
We're going to have that later? Oh, come on.
Maybe not. It has like marzipan on top, and there's way too much cream, and
it's beautiful. It's wonderful. That's actually my favorite cake too.
Yeah,
princess cake. Yeah.
It's green marzipan, and it's just, oh my God, yeah, it's good.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, that was a good question, right?
Thanks,
you, Jay.
Yeah. So I hope people now understand the benefit of grids, because quite often when you talk about lighting, it's about not only what you light, it's also what you exclude light from. I mean, where do you put the shadows, and where that you don't get additional light sources, and you get a lot more control with the grid. So these are very, very, very much welcome in my world, and I know in Tina's world as well, for us that want to limit light, and at least have control over the light. And that you're familiar with the Duo kit. We have not done an unboxing, so why don't we do an unboxing? It's pretty basic. Ta-da!
1,
2.
So
hence the name Duo.
Unboxing done. But it's a really nice kit if you are kind of a starter kit. You want to do weddings, etc., you want to have several lights, it's a good one. There is a price benefit when you buy two, so since you don't need double of everything, double charges and so forth, it's attractively priced. Yeah. So like I always say about Profoto, when people say, "Oh, it's so expensive," I say it's not expensive. It just costs a lot. It's like something that's expensive is something if there's no value behind it. Yeah. But you can buy a very expensive Audi, but you get a lot of features with it and so forth. So
also,
it's cool.
We have done a blog post which is up on your guys' website. So if people need a little inspiration what they can do with two of these, using it as a key, fill, rim, even as a trigger on your camera, you know, go and read it. There's a lot of light setups there.
That's true. It's on under the inspiration, I think, right? So inspiration side. So there's a long article where we have the light diagrams and everything. It's really good, and it's also for Tina's mother, if she's looking, it's also available in German.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
So it should be translated to.
My mom doesn't have Facebook. She's not going to watch this.
Oh, okay. Maybe you can show it for her.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. Well, so I think that rounds up our session. We don't have. Yeah. So do we have any questions?
Hey, I've got an idea. Like, because it looks like there's quite a few, and we probably didn't answer nearly enough of them.
Yeah.
But get in touch on your guys' Instagram, on my Instagram, and we're very approachable. You know, if you think of anything after this live stream, reach out.
Yeah, and we can also, we will actually try to answer everything afterwards, because
we do monitor this. But we do have some questions
going on.
Oh. Tina.
Yes.
Do you like to shoot in mostly hard light or soft light when you shoot beauty portraits?
I'm kind of torn now, because I used to call beauty dish hard light, but now I'm kind of like, it's not actually that hard, especially after I've seen, you know, like every modifier on the planet today. It's actually quite, you know, fairly soft, but I'm going to say more towards the hard.
Yeah, and we actually have two more good questions.
Oh, okay.
Samantha Ingrid Goris, this is a really good question. What's the power and how much light it puts out, difference between A1 and B1? So how many A1s do I need to equal the light of my B1
That's one
puts
for you.
out? This
actually, that is Andrew's question, because he knows the numbers.
That's one for you.
I love this. No, this is a very good question, because it's this is what a lot of people are confusing, because they talk about watt seconds, and watt seconds being like the only measure of how much light you get. But the only thing that watt seconds or guide numbers do is they measure a center point. If I shoot like 2 meters away from a wall, and what's the power in the middle? And that's irrelevant in a way. If I take the A1 2 meters away from the wall and boom, shoot it onto a wall and measure the center point, it is equal to the B1 at power level 9.7. So it's only slightly less than the B1, and it's actually the same as the B2, which is a 250 watt second light. So I get the same reading on an A1 or a B2, and then just slightly below 10 on a B1 when I fire it. So then you would say, well, how can that be possible? It's A1 has so much less watt
capacity.
Seconds. Yeah, and watt seconds is kind of like the gas tank in your car. How much gas do you have in your car? So if you have a car with a huge gas tank, it doesn't make it faster or stronger. It's just the amount of energy that you can put through the engine. And that's the same thing with watt seconds. It's all about the spread of light beams, of the light, how you spread it. So the A1 actually has a reflector that kind of pulls together the light, and then on top of that there's a Fresnel lens that even more gathers the light. So
actually, the Fresnel lens does what this doesn't. A Fresnel lens take all the rays of light and bend it to make it go forward.
So you get all the watt seconds in A1 focused on a smaller area, while on a B2 and a B1 it goes much wider because you have frosted glass, so it spreads out in a 77-degree angle. So you have light wider. So if I would go like 2 meters to the left or to the right, the reading on an A1 would be totally different from a B2 or a B1. So it's all about the light spread. And therefore, but if I would shoot you, Tina, not with the gun, but with the camera, and I have an A1 and I measure your nose, I would get the same f-stop reading on the light meter as I would get with a B2. So only for this part, the A1 works perfectly, and that's why quite often you see the result that when you are doing a beauty, that the A1 is very much sufficient because it is as strong as a B2 or a B1 slightly below 10, and the number of times when you are up close to 10 with the B1, it's very, very rare. You need that if you have a huge modifier like this, or maybe that's out of picture, the really big guy over there, yeah, it's out of picture. Or if you have a long distance, a very, very long distance, then you need the watt seconds to kind of go further. So the A1 is perfect in the center and then for that usage. So it's a good replacement.
So we said that the answer to the question was how many A1s compared to the B1, I guess.
And it's 1.
Yeah, it's 1 when you are measuring a small portion. Yeah.
But
so
if you're going to shoot a group of people,
yeah, then you are spreading out this small, from the A1, you're spreading out this small light pattern to a big one. It will go much
less.
More weaker. Yeah. And then you need something more powerful.
Exactly.
Bigger gas tank.
Bigger gas tank.
Yeah.
Then you need more gas.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the answer on that one. The technical.
Yeah. Depends on the area you are going to cover with light.
It's all about light spread.
Yeah.
And that's why if you have certain flashes with maybe 600 watt seconds that perform worse than the A1 because of the light spread, because it could be a bare bulb thing and it spreads 180 degrees or more even. So I think that was...
You promised us 2 really good questions. What's the other one?
The other one. What happens if you stack both grids?
Oh!
Now David is happy.
Yes.
Like 5 minutes before we were going live, he's like, I have to test and try stacking both. And he was shooting, and he always does this like seconds before we're going to go live. Yeah. And I always get nervous. I'm like, come on, you have to be ready.
Yeah, because I know that I would ask that question. What happens if you stack them? Is there any difference if you put one in front of the other, and what happens if you twist them to each other? I would ask.
Let's go for dinner now. This is going to take a while.
We've lost. Let's go for Princess.
But actually, we did this really quick test, and you can of course stack them. And what happened is that when you have the 10 degrees behind the 20 degrees, which is the most preferable way to stack them, because the 20 degrees have a thicker honeycomb, so it won't stick as well. So the 10 and then the 20th, you will actually get, I would say, like the pattern. You create a new pattern, and it looks like
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, it looks like Mickey Mouse. And if you twisted the 20-degree grid like this, then it will get round, and then it looks like almost about a 20-degree pattern. So you won't get like 2 degrees. You don't add them up. But you get some kind of funny patterns, and you won't get any more narrow patterns, so it doesn't make any sense to do it. It just drains power. So it's a fun thing to try out, and it creates great patterns. Yeah. But
what happens is that you for each layer of grid you put, you use more power, so you need to power up the A1, which means less pops, less flashes.
Because it would be interesting, like if you get even more even a tighter beam of light, but it doesn't. So it's no point of stacking them up, unless you want a Mickey Mouse shape.
Cool.
Yeah.
So with that, I say thank you so much, Tina,
Thanks for having
coming
me.
over.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. As always, I'm so happy when I learn things. And I'm looking forward to learn more about beauty photography, and also all you guys out there, go and check the website. There's a lot of there's like 6 setups, right? With lighting diagrams and everything. Yeah, so you can see
setups, all with 2
what can
A1s.
be done with the 2 A1s.
Yeah.
Awesome. And thank you, David.
Yeah, thank
again
you
for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank
Making
you,
me nervous.
5 minutes before, always do something to make him nervous.
Panic.
Thank you so much, guys, and see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.